what is it about this particular sporting event that makes it so special? Maybe for somebody who hasn't been, what is it like to experience the Kentucky Derby?
Well, I always hear the word bucket list, and I think because it's a huge event. Anytime you got a blimp up in the air, it's big. And so, but the whole town it's just thriving, parties all week leading up to it. The A lot of celebrities show up. Gives a little bit. They have a lot of these parties, and these every night there's a party. It's just crazy. And so when you have 150,000 people show up, and they're all dressed to the nines. I mean, the women with their outfits and the hats, and the men are dressed up. You have to really dress up for it. So it's like it's a couple of days of just partying hard, but you're in a very high, society type atmosphere.
Can I ask, how do you pick what you're going to wear?
I usually wear I'll always wear, depends on how good my horse is, but, if I have a long shot, I'll just wear a coat from years back. But if I have a really good horse, like last couple of years with Justify and American Pharoah, I always bought like a new sport coat. I always buy a new tie for any big event. I always wear a different tie. And so, but my wife, Jill, she's the one that, she has to decide. It's a huge thing because, if you're going to be on television a lot, you want to, look good. So it's important that we all, wear something nice. And the funny thing is when we get beat on those big days, my wife, first thing she says is, well, I can wear this outfit again because nobody saw it, so.
That's great perspective. I totally understand there. You've had a ton of success at the Derby. You won it 5 times. What is it like to win the Kentucky Derby?
It's an exciting. I mean, it's a feeling that the first time I went was in 1996 with a horse, and he was picked for maybe to run fourth, and he had to lead, and he got beat like an inch right on the wire, and I thought he had won, but it was one of those things where you're not prepared to be on the lead in the Derby. I couldn't believe I've never cheered so hard for a horse in my life. I mean, I was just to get him there, and it's so loud, it's crazy. But it's something that when you do win, it's like you feel like it's almost like a report card of your life. Like you must have done something good in your life to deserve such an honor to win the Kentucky Derby. So you can't, it's priceless. You can't put words to it because it's it's an out of body experience. I remember the first time I won, I can't remember how I got down there. I just ran down. I couldn't wait to run down there and just leave everybody behind. But it's that exciting.
From what I understand, you wanted to be a jockey. How did it turn out that your path took you to become, this Hall of Fame caliber trainer?
Well, I started out to be a jockey, and I was doing okay until I started growing in high school. I got too tall for it, and I was too heavy. I had to really fight the weight, and it just wasn't worth it. And I realized early on that I probably wasn't that good of a jockey. And so I won like 25 races, quarter horse races, and it was a thrill. It was a thrill to win them and stuff. But I knew I wasn't talented enough to go out and ride in California. So a jockey friend of mine that I really respected, he told me, you should probably quit. So I quit the next day, and I decided to become a trainer. So I trained quarter horses first in Arizona, did really well, went to Los Alamitos in 1983, and took me a few years, and I was doing really well. And I met some friends. I had the Hal Earnhardt of lives in Phoenix. I trained for him, and he wanted to get a thoroughbred, and he met a friend, Mike Pegram, and he said, why don't you train thoroughbred? So I tried it out, and next thing you know, by in '88, I started dabbling with them, and by '91, I'd already won I think a Breeders' Cup with my first thoroughbred that I bought. And so, or '92, I can't remember. It's been so long, but that's what got me going into it, the transition. I never dreamt of thoroughbreds. I never did like thoroughbreds when I was training quarter horses in Arizona, but I watched the Derby every year. That was a big thing, but I never considered myself to be at that level. That was like, that'd be like, you're coaching high school, and they tell you, think you'll be a coach of Super Bowl one day? I go, not even close, you know. I can't even afford to go to a Super Bowl, much less coach. But that's the way it started out.
That's a great analogy. I'd love to hear too where the University of Arizona came into the picture. I didn't know a whole lot about their racetrack industry program until I started doing a little bit of research for this interview, and it's impressive. How did you end up there?
Well, all my siblings, we, you know, growing up in Nogales, we go to the University of Arizona, that we didn't have a choice, you know. And ASU, Arizona State, that's a no-no, you know. It's like you don't go to school there. And so I went to the University of Arizona, just loved it. I remember going there as a kid, going to the football games. My parents had seats there, and they would put us in the kiddie corner, wherever it was down below, where the kids. And I remember going to those games, and we'd always go to the ASU game, and they would just kill us. they, they had they had this Frank Cush, this coach. It was just, he was just unbelievable, and they would just destroy us all the time. I remember that, you know. So, but Arizona, I love the university. It's such a beautiful campus. It's great. I loved my years there. And then when I was going there, they started this racetrack management. So I thought, hey, that sounds good to me, you know. You know, it was just getting going. It wasn't like it is now. Now that's really, you know, there's some they've added a lot more. It was just one little couple classes. It wasn't really that big. But if it hadn't been for that, I probably still never would have graduated. You know, I needed that. It's the only thing I knew.
Can you tell me like the process of how a horse's name gets chosen? I know there's a lot of regulations about naming a racehorse. So like what is that process? And have you been?
You know what? You're only allowed 17 letters. That includes a space. And what you do is you can name it anything you want. But then you have to check with the jockey club to make sure that that name hasn't been taken. Like Midnight Loot, there's a horse that you were brought up. He was named after Lute Olson. It was Jerry Tarkanian had given him a nickname of Midnight Loot, because he said, the story was, Lute says it's BS, but he said, it's a great story, right? He went to this kid's house. I can't remember the player's name. He left his house at 9 o'clock. He said, he's going to sign with us. He's going to come to Las Vegas. He's got him. And the next day, the kid calls him up. He says, oh, I just want to let you know, coach, that I'm going to the University of Arizona. But I left your house at 9 o'clock. What happened? I thought we had a deal. He says, no, right after you left, Mr. Olson showed up at my house. So that's how he got the name Midnight Loop. And it turned out to be a great racehorse. He was a champion racehorse. It's had some really good horses. So, and Lute Olson, he loved it. I mean, he came out and watched him run at Del Mar. So, you know, Lute Olson was what what great person, but what a great coach. I mean, we're so lucky to have him there at the U of A. I mean, he made Arizona basketball.
I imagine, you know, if you're a horse and you're named after Lute Olson, you better be pretty legendary. There's no doubt about that. All right. I know I got to let you go soon, but I got to ask before I do let you go. I'm sure that this question comes up all the time when people ask you who your favorite horse is.
My favorite horse was Silver Charm. It was my first Derby. We didn't pay a lot of money for him. He wasn't bred that well, just a blue collar. And he won the Kentucky Derby. He made like close to $7 million, but he was gritty. He wouldn't let horses pass him. And the fans loved him, but the all-time favorite has to be American Pharoah, because it's not that he won the Triple Crown, he was a great racehorse, but he had the sweetest disposition. You could just go up to him after the race and he'd lay his head right in your lap. He'd love people. And it really, when we retired him, I had tears. I just felt like my kid was going off. I wasn't going to see him, you know, going off to college, wouldn't see him, really missed him. But I've been really fortunate to have some unbelievable horses. I mean, I would have never dreamt when I was sitting there at Relito Downs training horses or trying to be a jockey that I've ever been in this situation. And I mean, if it wasn't for YouTube, I have to remind myself of, you know, all the great horses I've had.